Welcome to a story full of mystery, magic, and danger. One cold, rainy night, a family receives a strange visitor. He brings a small, dried monkey's paw and a warning. It can give you 3 wishes. But be careful, every wish has a price. Are you ready to hear what happens next?
В аудиокниге встроены английские субтитры. Чтобы включить их перевод на любой язык, нажмите «Субтитры», затем значок шестеренки, «Субтитры», «Перевести», выберите нужный язык.
The Monkey's Paw by W.Jacobs. Complete text adapted for B1 level students. Outside, the night was cold and wet. But inside the small living room of Laburnum Villa, the curtains were closed and the fire burned bright. Mr. White and his son were playing chess. The father had strange ideas about the game and kept putting his king in danger. This even made Mrs. White, the white-haired old lady, who was knitting quietly by the fire, speak up. "Listen to the wind," said Mr. White. He had just made a big mistake in the game, but he wanted to stop his son from noticing it. "I'm listening," said the son. He looked at the chessboard seriously and reached out his hand. "Check." "I don't think he will come tonight," said his father. His hand stopped above the board. "Mate," said the son. "That is the problem with living so far from town," shouted Mr. White suddenly and loudly. "This is the worst place, wet, muddy, and far away. The path is like a swamp, and the road is like a river. I don't know what people think. Only 2 houses here have people living in them, so nobody cares." "Never mind, dear," said his wife gently. "Maybe you will win the next game." Mr. White looked up quickly. He saw a secret look between his wife and son. His words stopped, and he hid a small guilty smile in his thin grey beard. "There he is," said Herbert White. The gate closed with a loud bang, and heavy steps came toward the door. The old man stood up quickly to welcome the guest. He opened the door and spoke kindly to the new person. The visitor also complained about the weather. Mrs. White said, "Tut, tut," and coughed softly. Her husband came into the room, followed by a tall, strong man with small bright eyes and a red face. "Sergeant Major Morris," said Mr. White, introducing him. The sergeant major shook hands. He sat in the chair by the fire. He watched happily as his host brought out whiskey, glasses, and put a small copper kettle on the fire. After his 3rd glass, his eyes became brighter. He started to talk. The small family listened with great interest to this visitor from far away. He sat up straight in the chair and told about strange places, brave actions, wars, diseases, and unusual people. 21 years of it, said Mr. White. He looked at his wife and son. When he left, he was just a thin young man working in the warehouse. Now look at him. "He looks fine," said Mrs. White politely. "I would like to visit India myself," said the old man. "Just to see a little, you know." "Better to stay here," said the sergeant major. He shook his head. He put down his empty glass and sighed. Then he shook the glass again. "I want to see the old temples, the holy men, and the jugglers," said the old man. "What was that story you started the other day about a monkey's paw, Morris?" "Nothing," said the soldier quickly. Nothing important. Monkey's paw, said Mrs. White with interest. Well, it is a little bit of magic, maybe, said the sergeant major carelessly. The three listeners leaned forward with excitement. The visitor put his empty glass to his mouth without thinking, then put it down. His host filled it again. To look at it, said the sergeant major. He reached into his pocket. It is just a normal small paw, dried like a mummy. He took something out and held it out. Mrs. White moved back with a face of dislike. But her son took it and looked at it carefully. What is special about it? Asked Mr. White. He took it from his son, looked at it, and put it on the table. An old holy man put a spell on it, said the sergeant major. He was very religious. He wanted to show that fate controls people's lives. Anyone who tries to change fate will be sorry. He made the spell so 3 different men can each get 3 wishes. He spoke so seriously that the others felt their small laugh sounded wrong. Well, why don't you take 3 wishes, sir? Said Herbert White in a clever way. The soldier looked at him the way older people look at young people who speak too boldly. I did, he said quietly. His face became pale. Did you really get the 3 wishes? Asked Mrs. White. Yes, said the sergeant major. His glass hit his strong teeth. Did anyone else wish? Asked the old lady. The first man got his 3 wishes, he answered. I don't know the first 2. But the third was for death. That is how I got the paw. He spoke so seriously that everyone became quiet. If you have had your 3 wishes, it is no use to you now, Morris, said the old man finally. Why do you keep it? The soldier shook his head. I don't know, he said slowly. Just because, I guess. If you could have 3 more wishes, said the old man, looking at him closely, would you take them? I don't know, said the other. I don't know. He took the paw and held it between his finger and thumb. Then suddenly he threw it into the fire. Mr. White gave a small cry, bent down, and pulled it out. Better to let it burn, said the soldier seriously. If you don't want it, Morris, said the old man, give it to me. No, said his friend firmly. I threw it in the fire. If you keep it, don't blame me for what happens. Throw it back in the fire like a smart man. The other shook his head and looked closely at the paw. How do you use it? He asked. Hold it in your right hand and say the wish out loud, said the sergeant major. But I warn you about what might happen. It sounds like stories from Arabian Nights, said Mrs. White. She stood up and started to prepare supper. Why not wish for 4 pairs of hands for me? Her husband took the paw from his pocket. Then all 3 laughed. The sergeant major looked worried and grabbed his arm. If you must wish, he said roughly, wish for something reasonable. Mr. White put it back in his pocket. He moved chairs and asked his friend to sit at the table. During supper, they almost forgot the paw. Later, the 3 listened with great interest to more stories about the soldier's life in India. If the story about the monkey's paw is no more true than his other stories, said Herbert when the guest left to catch the last train, we will not get much from it. Did you give him money for it, father? Asked Mrs. White. She looked at her husband closely. A little, he said. His face became red. He did not want it, but I made him take it. He told me again to throw it away. That makes sense, said Herbert with fake fear. Now we will be rich, famous, and happy. Wish to be an emperor, father. Then mother cannot tell you what to do. He ran around the table. Mrs. White chased him with a small cloth from the chair. You are listening to an audiobook from the English at Work channel. Mr. White took the paw from his pocket and looked at it without sure feelings. I don't know what to wish for, he said slowly. I think I have everything I want. If you paid off the house, you would be happy, right? Said Herbert. His hand was on his father's shoulder. Well, wish for £200. That will pay it. His father smiled with shame at his own belief. He held up the paw. His son sat at the piano with a serious face but winked at his mother. He played a few strong notes. I wish for £200, said the old man clearly. A loud noise from the piano answered. Then the old man gave a shaking cry. His wife and son ran to him. It moved, he cried. He looked with dislike at the paw on the floor. When I wished, it turned in my hand like a snake. Well, I don't see the money, said his son. He picked it up and put it on the table. And I bet I never will. It was just your imagination, father, said his wife. She looked at him with worry. He shook his head. Never mind. No harm done. But it shocked me. They sat by the fire again. The two men finished their pipes. Outside, the wind was stronger. The old man jumped at the sound of a door closing upstairs. A heavy, quiet feeling came over all three. It lasted until the old couple went to bed. I think you will find the money in a big bag on your bed, said Herbert when he said good night. And something terrible sitting on the wardrobe watching you take your bad money. He sat alone in the dark and looked at the dying fire. He saw faces in the flames. The last face was so ugly and like a monkey that he looked at it in surprise. It became so clear that he laughed nervously. He reached for a glass of water to throw on it. His hand touched the monkey's paw. With a small shake, he wiped his hand on his coat and went to bed. In the bright winter sun the next morning, light came over the breakfast table. Herbert laughed at his fears from the night. The room felt normal and healthy now. The dirty, small, dried paw was on a shelf. They treated it as if it had no power. I think all old soldiers are the same, said Mrs. White. We listen to such silly stories. How can wishes come true today? And even if they could, how could £200 hurt you, father? It might fall on his head from the sky, said Herbert in a joking way. Morris said things happen in a natural way, said his father. You might think it is just chance. Well, don't spend the money before I return, said Herbert. He stood up from the table. I am afraid it will make you greedy, and we will have to say we don't know you. His mother laughed. She followed him to the door and watched him walk down the road. She came back to the table. She was happy to make fun of her husband's belief. But she still ran to the door when the postman knocked. She was short with words about drinking old sergeant majors when the mail was only a bill from the tailor. Herbert will have more funny things to say when he comes home, she said at dinner. Maybe, said Mr. White. He poured some beer. but the paw moved in my hand. I promise that. You thought it did, said the old lady gently. I say it did, he answered. I did not think. I just... What is wrong? His wife did not answer. She watched a man outside. He looked at the house in an unsure way. He seemed to decide if he should come in. She thought about the £200. The stranger wore good clothes and a new shiny silk hat. 3 times he stopped at the gate and walked away. The 4th time he put his hand on the gate. Then he opened it quickly and walked up the path. At the same time, Mrs. White put her hands behind her back. She quickly untied her apron and hid it under the chair cushion. She brought the stranger into the room. He looked uncomfortable. He looked at her secretly. He listened but did not pay full attention as the old lady said sorry for the messy room and her husband's old coat. He usually wore that coat in the garden. She waited as long as she could for him to say why he came. But he was quiet at first. I was told to visit, he said finally. He bent and picked a small piece of cotton from his pants. I am from Moore and Meggins. The old lady jumped. Is something wrong? She asked quickly. Did something happen to Herbert? What is it? Her husband spoke. Calm down, mother, he said fast. Sit and don't think the worst. You did not bring bad news, I am sure, sir. He looked at the man with hope. I am sorry. The visitor started. Is he hurt? The mother asked loudly. The visitor nodded. Badly hurt, he said quietly. But he feels no pain. Oh, thank God, said the old woman. She put her hands together. Thank God for that. She stopped suddenly. She understood the dark meaning. She saw her fear was true in the man's face that looked away. She stopped breathing for a moment. She turned to her husband, who understood slowly. She put her shaking old hand on his. There was a long quiet. He was caught in the machinery, said the visitor after a while, in a low voice. Caught in the machinery, repeated Mr. White. He sounded confused. Yes. He sat and looked out the window with empty eyes. He took his wife's hand in his. He held it like he did when they were young, almost 40 years ago. He was the only child we had left, he said gently to the visitor. This is hard. The other coughed. He stood and walked slowly to the window. The company asked me to give their true sadness for your great loss, he said without turning. Please understand I am just a worker following orders. No one answered. The old woman's face was white. Her eyes stared. She could not be heard breathing. The husband's face looked like a soldier going into his first battle. I must say that Moore and Meggins take no blame, the man continued. They say they are not responsible. But because of your son's work, they want to give you some money as payment. Mr. White let go of his wife's hand. He stood and looked at the visitor with horror. His dry lips formed the words, how much? £200, was the answer. The old man did not hear his wife scream. He smiled a little, reached out his hands like a blind man, and fell to the floor without feeling. In the large new cemetery 2 miles away, the old couple buried their son. they returned to a house full of darkness and quiet. Everything happened so fast. At first, they could not believe it. They waited as if something more would happen, something to make the pain easier for old hearts. But days passed. Waiting turned to acceptance, the sad acceptance of old people, sometimes called not caring. They almost never spoke. They had nothing to say. Their days felt long and tiring. About a week later, the old man woke suddenly at night. He reached out and found he was alone. The room was dark. He heard quiet crying from the window. He sat up in bed and listened. "Come back to bed," he said kindly. "You will get cold." "It is colder for my son," said the old woman. She cried again. Her crying became softer. The bed was warm. His eyes were heavy. He slept a little, then fully, until his wife cried out wildly and woke him. "The paw," she cried. "The monkey's paw." He sat up, scared. "Where? What is wrong?" She walked unsteadily across the room. "I want it," she said quietly. "You did not destroy it." "It is in the living room, on the shelf," he said, surprised. "Why?" She cried and laughed at the same time. She bent and kissed his face. "I just thought of it now," she said in a wild voice. "Why did we not think before? Why did you not think?" "Think of what?" he asked. "The other two wishes," she said fast. "We have only used one." "Was one not enough?" he asked angrily. "No," she said with victory in her voice. "We will have one more. Go get it now and wish our boy alive again." The man sat up and threw off the covers from his shaking legs. "Good God, you are crazy," he said in fear. "Get it," she said, breathing hard. "Get it fast and wish, oh, my boy." Her husband lit a match and a candle. "Go back to bed," he said with a shaking voice. "You don't know what you say." "We got the first wish," said the old woman quickly. "Why not the second?" "Just chance," said the old man weakly. "Go get it and wish," cried the old woman. She shook with excitement. The old man looked at her. His voice shook. "He has been dead 10 days. And I did not tell you, but I only knew him by his clothes. If he was too bad to see then, how now?" "Bring him back," cried the old woman. She pulled him to the door. "Do you think I fear my own child?" He went down in the dark. He felt his way to the living room and the fireplace shelf. The paw was there. A terrible fear came. The wish might bring his broken son before he could leave the room. He stopped breathing. He had lost the way to the door. His face wet with sweat, he felt around the table and along the wall. He found the small hallway with the bad thing in his hand. Even his wife's face looked different when he entered. It was white and waiting. To his fear, it looked unnatural. He was afraid of her. "Wish," she cried loudly. "It is stupid and wrong," he said weakly. "Wish," his wife said again. He raised his hand. "I wish my son alive again." The paw fell to the floor. He looked at it with fear. Then he sat shaking in a chair. The old woman with bright eyes went to the window and opened the curtain. He sat until he felt cold. Sometimes he looked at the old woman looking out the window. The candle was almost gone. It made moving shadows on the walls. Then it went out with a big flicker. The old man felt great relief that the paw did not work. He went quietly back to bed. Soon the old woman came and lay beside him without a word. They did not speak. They lay listening to the clock. A step made noise. A mouse ran in the wall. The dark felt heavy. After some time, the husband got his courage. He took matches, lit one, and went down for a candle. At the bottom of the stairs, the match died. He stopped to light another. At that moment, a knock came on the front door, soft and secret, almost not heard. The matches fell. He stood still, holding his breath until the knock came again. Then he ran fast back to the room and closed the door. A third knock sounded in the house. "What is that?" cried the old woman. She sat up. "A rat," said the old man with a shaking voice. "A rat? It passed me on the stairs." His wife sat listening. A loud knock filled the house. "It's Herbert," she screamed. "It's Herbert." She ran to the door. But her husband reached it first. He held her arm tight. "What will you do?" he whispered. "It's my boy, it's Herbert," she cried. She tried to get free. "I forgot the cemetery is 2 miles away. Why do you hold me? Let me open the door." "For God's sake, don't let it in," cried the old man, shaking. "You fear your own son," she cried. She fought. "Let me go. I'm coming, Herbert." Another knock. And another. The old woman pulled free suddenly and ran from the room. Her husband followed to the top of the stairs. He called to her as she went down. He heard the chain move and the bottom lock open slowly. Then the old woman's voice, tired and out of breath. "The lock," she cried. "Come down. I can't reach it." But her husband was on the floor feeling for the paw. He must find it before the thing outside entered. Many knocks sounded like guns. He heard his wife move a chair to the door. He heard the lock open slowly. At that moment, he found the monkey's paw. He made his third and last wish with all his breath. The knocking stopped at once, but sound still filled the house. He heard the chair move and the door open. Cold wind came up the stairs. A long cry of sadness and pain from his wife gave him strength. He ran down to her and then to the gate. The street light showed an empty and quiet road.
Больше историй смотрите по ссылке. Читайте и слушайте одновременно интереснейшую классику, адаптированную под современный английский специально для вас. Погружайтесь в язык через увлекательные сюжеты англоязычной литературы. Такой формат помогает учить английский естественно, без зубрежки и тренировать навыки для реальных ситуаций.